there's this one new sci-fi game out there that I've had my eyes on for a little while now, and each and every time we get something new from it, it just truly feels like a proper action experience that I'm almost sure will actually deliver. I don't know, there's just something about it that feels professional, clean, and unique. You can really tell these developers know what they're doing, and the brand new gameplay and details we've been given just confirms it. The recent conversation around The Expanse, Osiris Reborn changed in a big way after developers finally opened up about how the game actually plays and what kind of experience they're building. Once that context is out there, everything else clicks into place. This isn't a loose sci-fi action game wearing The Expanse branding. It's a project built around the rules of that universe, and those rules shape every system, every encounter, and every decision you make. Zero Gravity is one of the clearest examples of that philosophy. Movement, combat, and traversal fundamentally change once gravity is removed. You're no longer thinking in straight lines or flat spaces. Momentum carries you, recoil pushes you off balance. Positioning becomes a three-dimensional problem rather than something you solve by ducking behind chest-high cover. Even small engagements demand attention and patience, because losing control of your movement can be just as dangerous as an enemy weapon. It creates tension not by overwhelming you with enemies, but by making the environment itself something you have to constantly account for. That same logic extends to how the game treats consequences. Osiris Reborn isn't built around constant escalation or power fantasy. Choices linger, relationships shift, situations don't always resolve cleanly. Sometimes the safest option creates longer-term complications. Sometimes helping one group quietly closes doors with another. The game doesn't stop to underline those moments or spell them out. You're expected to notice, adapt, and live with the outcomes, and faction dynamics are central to this. You're operating in a fractured system where every group has its own priorities, pressures, and internal conflicts. The inner planets, the outer settlements, corporate interests, and independent operators all coexist uneasily. No one has complete control, and no one is entirely clean. You're not dropped into the role of a chosen savior. You're a capable individual navigating systems that are much bigger than you, and sometimes actively hostile to you. Structurally, the game leans toward dense, interconnected spaces rather than endless sprawl. Space stations are layered environments with civilian areas, industrial zones, security sections, and places you're not meant to be. Ships function as more than transportation. They're extensions of the world shaped by function and necessity. Planetary locations feel deliberately harsh, reinforcing the idea that expansion into space comes with constant risk and compromise. Character progression reflects that grounded approach. Advancement isn't just about dealing more damage or unlocking flashier abilities. Background, skills, and past decisions affect how people respond to you, what information you can access, and how problems can be approached. Knowledge, preparation, and social awareness often open paths that force never could. Dialogue isn't filler here, it's a tool, and sometimes the most effective one you have. Combat exists, but it's framed carefully. Weapons are dangerous, encounters are unpredictable, and mistakes are punished quickly. Ammunition and resources matter. Enemies behave in ways that feel reactive rather than scripted. In Zero G, fights become slower and more deliberate, demanding spatial awareness and restraint. On the ground, environments play a bigger role, with destructible elements and shifting conditions affecting how engagements unfold. Winning a fight often feels less like domination and more like surviving by making fewer errors than the other side. Narratively, Osiris Reborn takes its time. Storytelling isn't rushed or constantly interrupted by spectacle. Information comes through conversations, overheard moments, environmental detail, and the accumulation of small decisions. Companions aren't just along for the ride, they have opinions, limits, and their own sense of risk. Trust is earned, not assumed, and it can be strained depending on how you operate. Immersion is treated as a design goal rather than a marketing point. Systems like oxygen supply, pressure, ship integrity, and environmental hazards are part of everyday play. Ignoring them isn't an option. Space is hostile by default, and the game never lets you forget that. Even moments of calm carry an undercurrent of vulnerability. Visually, the focus is on atmosphere and believability. Lighting, scale, and material detail work together to create spaces that feel lived in and functional. Stations are cramped and utilitarian. Ships prioritize purpose over comfort. Planetary environments feel unforgiving rather than picturesque. The technology supports the tone instead of distracting from it. What stands out most is how comfortable the developers seem with restraint. Osiris Reborn isn't chasing constant spectacle or endless content loops. games. It's structured, intentional, and confident in a slower, more thoughtful pace. That's a risky approach, especially for a licensed game, but it's also what gives it a distinct identity. The more information comes out, the clearer it becomes that this is an attempt to translate the Expanse's core themes into interactive form: power imbalance, fragile alliances, human ambition colliding with physical reality, and survival shaped by compromise. It's not trying to soften those edges or make them more accessible. It's leaning into them. At this stage, the project feels defined in a way many games don't until very late in development. The systems support the tone. The structure supports the narrative. The mechanics reinforce the setting rather than fighting against it. That cohesion is encouraging, especially for a game operating in a genre where scale often overwhelms meaning. If Osiris Reborn delivers on what's already been outlined, it won't stand out because it's louder or larger than everything else. It'll stand out because it's measured, grounded, and willing to trust players to engage with complexity. In a landscape filled with games that constantly compete for attention, that kind of confidence is rare, and that's ultimately why it's worth paying attention to now. Not because it promises endless features or spectacle, but because it's shaping itself into a focused experience with a clear identity. If it lands, it won't just be another sci-fi RPG, it'll be one that understands exactly what kind of story and world it wants to put in your hands. And that's where the bigger picture starts to matter. Osiris Reborn feels like a project that understands its limits and uses them deliberately. Instead of trying to simulate an entire galaxy at once, it focuses on making each location, system, and interaction feel purposeful. You're not bouncing between disconnected activities just to stay busy. Time spent traveling, preparing, talking, or observing is part of the experience, not downtime to be skipped. There's also a strong sense that the game respects player intelligence. It doesn't rush to explain every mechanic or spell out every implication. You're expected to learn how the world works by operating within it. That applies to navigation, combat, dialogue, and even moral choices. The game trusts that players will connect dots on their own, and that trust shapes the pacing in a way that feels confident rather than cautious. Another thing worth highlighting is how personal scale is handled. Even when events are large or politically significant, your role within them stays grounded. You're rarely the most powerful person in the room. Authority comes from leverage, information, and timing, not raw strength. That makes moments of influence feel earned instead of inevitable, and it reinforces the tone that power in this universe is fragile and often temporary.